For the first time in this act, we are not inside the claustrophobic confines of Macbeth's castle. The scene instead opens somewhere in Scotland. Ross enters, accompanied by an old man, the dramatic function of whom is to demonstrate the ramifications that the Macbeth's actions have had for more than just Duncan's inner circle of thanes. In this way, the old man is perhaps representative of the common people, and so provides the view of the outsider who has no intimate knowledge of the events to which we have been privy. The pair discuss the unnatural occurrences of the night of Duncan's murder, indicating that it has had devastating consequences for the entire country. The old man reveals that he is 70, or 70 years old, and he says that during this long time he has seen hours dreadful and things strange, but this sore night hath trifled former knowing. In other words, he has seen many strange and terrible things in his life, but these pale in comparison when he thinks about what he has witnessed the night before. Ross agrees, remarking, "Thou seest the heavens as troubled with man's act threatens his bloody stage." Here he refers, using a theatrical metaphor, to the macrocosm, the heavens or the universe as a whole, and to the microcosm, or the earthly sphere, which was seen as the universe in miniature, man's stage upon which man acts or performs. It was widely believed in Shakespeare's time that any change in the balance of the microcosm affected the balance of the macrocosm. In other words, the murder of Duncan, an act which has made man's stage bloody, has thrown the whole universe out of kilter, causing it to threaten the earth with freak events in retaliation. This, of course, has nothing to do with the fact that a mere man has been murdered, and everything to do with the fact that a divinely appointed king has been assassinated. In Shakespeare's time, there was a widely held belief in the concept of the divine right of kings, which stated that a monarch was, before birth, chosen by God and in the image of God. This gave the monarch both legitimacy and absolute power, meaning that he was not subject to the will of the people and therefore could not be dethroned by man, as this was against the will of God. The heavens then are suitably outraged at what has happened and have responded by throwing all their toys out of the pram on a truly monumental scale. Everything has been turned upside down. Ross observes that it is dark, even though it is daytime. By the clock 'tis day, and yet dark night strangles the travelling lamp. Note the use of murderous vocabulary to describe how the sun, or the travelling lamp, has been extinguished. The heavens' actions echoing those of men on earth, who have effectively snuffed out the celestial body of the king, around whom they all orbited. He wonders whether it is the night's or evil's predominance, or the day's shame that darkness does the face of earth entomb when living light should kiss it. Note the hard alliteration of day and darkness which links the two together in the minds of the audience, as well as the harsh assonance of earth entomb, which both contrast with the liquid l and sibilance present in living light should kiss it. The old man adds his own observations that the roles of animals have also been reversed. An owl, relatively low down in the hierarchy of birds of prey, which would normally swoop on a tiny mouse on the ground, has instead taken down or hawked and killed in mid-flight a falcon towering in her pride of place. The parallel here between this and Duncan being taken down in the prime of life by a lesser being is obvious. Ross responds in a similar vein, noting that Duncan's own horses, beauteous and swift, the minions of their race, or the best examples that their breed has to offer, turned wild in nature, broke their stalls, flung out, contending against obedience. In other words, they broke out of their stables and, rebelling against all the training that had once made them obedient, appeared as though they wanted to make war with mankind. The old man now appears to be adding an outlandish rumour to the mix in order to embellish this story when he remarks, "'Tis said they eat, or ate, each other." This, however, is shockingly confirmed by Ross, who claims to have witnessed this very thing at first hand. "They did so, to the amazement of mine eyes that looked upon it." The two men are interrupted by the entrance of Macduff. Ross's greeting and question, "How goes the world now, sir?" is met merely by exasperated incredulity on Macduff's part, as he responds with a somewhat brusque rhetorical question, "Why, see you not?" suggesting that the darkness that is currently cloaking the land speaks for itself. It's still accepted, at least in public, that those whom Macbeth hath slain, the drunken chamberlains, are responsible for this more than bloody deed. Ross can't quite believe it as he questions, what good could they pretend? I.e., what good were they under the impression would come of such an act? Macduff has an easy response to this. He is convinced that they were suborned or bribed to do it by somebody who would benefit, and the fact that Malcolm and Donalbain, the king's two sons, are stolen away and fled, puts upon them suspicion of the deed. This, in common with the other unnatural happenings, is against nature still, argues Ross. It is purely, he asserts, thriftless ambition that will raven up or devour thine own life's means. It is, in other words, an unnatural, self-destructive, self-defeating force, which is personified as being thriftless or wasteful, gobbling up that which was necessary to give you life in the first place. Note how this image communicates that the concept of ambition, which is, of course, Macbeth's fatal flaw, was a dirty word as far as Shakespeare was concerned. It didn't have the positive connotations of aspiration and success which we give it today. In Shakespeare's day, social hierarchies were very rigid, and few people were able to significantly change their social standing outside of the class they had been born into. And so ambition here is understood to be the desire to rise beyond the station that one has been allotted in life. Not only this, but we can see that Shakespeare's attitudes towards ambition can be traced back to the popular perception of the time of the writings of Niccolò Machiavelli. Machiavelli was an Italian Renaissance writer and philosopher, most famous for his work The Prince, written in 1513. Machiavelli used his own experiences as a diplomat to write a treatise on how to acquire and maintain power, which included a willingness to commit evil deeds if necessary, even though moral behaviour was the preferred option. Machiavelli's work has, however, been gravely misunderstood, as it merely comprised his calm and dispassionate observations of what actually happened in politics, rather than an enthusiastic encouragement of what he would like to see happen. Even by the time Shakespeare was writing, Machiavelli, a Catholic, had been demonised as a man who, under the devil's influence, was driven to lead otherwise good men to their doom. Ross remarks that, in the absence of Malcolm, Duncan's named heir, and Donalbain, 'tis most like the sovereignty will fall upon Macbeth. Macbeth, it appears, has wasted no time in exploiting the power vacuum that he has created, as Macduff reveals that he has already named and gone to Scone to be invested, or crowned. We also learn that Duncan's body has been carried to Colmcille, the Scottish island of Iona, to be laid to rest with his predecessors, or the kings that have come before him. Ross asks Macduff if he will go to Scone to participate in the coronation, but Macduff is very clear that he will not. No, cousin, I'll to Fife, which is where his own ancestral lands are, while Ross resolves that he himself shall go. Alarm bells are already starting to ring. Macduff is clearly disapproving of the whole state of affairs and does not wish to be a party to it, although he is, at this time, still playing his cards pretty close to his chest. Note that he does not elaborate to Ross why he has decided not to go. His uneasiness is evident, however, as he declares his hope that Ross may see things well done there. Note how clothing imagery is used once more, but this time to communicate his concern that their new roles will not be as comfortable as their previous ones under King Duncan. Lest our old robes sit easier than our new. The scene ends with the old man giving them and those that would make good of bad and friends of foes a blessing or God's benison. Note once more the close connection that Shakespeare forges between direct opposites. Although the scene is a relatively short one, it has a number of important functions. It fills in the narrative and accelerates the plot. Macbeth's coronation is essential for the plot to be able to move forward, but it isn't necessary for it to be given valuable stage time. And for Shakespeare, it is sufficient that we are just told about it by the other characters. It also establishes the way in which the world has been turned upside down by Macbeth's crime against heaven, and this atmosphere of chaos will persist until the end of the play, and the rightful king has been restored to the throne. Not only this, but Macduff's blatant snubbing of Macbeth's coronation and his removing himself to his own castle sets him apart from the other Thanes and hints that he is setting himself up to challenge Macbeth at some later date. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments section below and I'll do my best to answer them. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos on English language topics and exam techniques and English literature texts.